Hello and welcome to Stand Up World,
Episode 43.
where the rubber meets the road. This is the most important episode of a podcast you will ever watch or listen to. Your life is going to change. So sit down, have some liquids, make sure the pets are settled. This is going to be a mind blower. I don't know why, but it just is. I feel it. Got a really good, interesting, funny guest. I'm feeling a little out of my mind today. I took a lithium bath this morning, and I'm on a steady drip of this shit now. So I really feel ready to talk to a comedian and bore the living pants off you for about 45 minutes. So buckle up! Say hello to the producer from Boston.
What's up, Mike?
That's Patrick Arnold. Not a bright fella, but a nice guy. Barely graduated college not long ago.
Just barely.
Beauty college, if you want to know the truth. Learned how to cut hair, and look the way he wears his hat, you can tell he didn't learn much.
That's for sure, yeah.
But he's here today with us to welcome Lee Camp, who is an interesting fella. And I'm sorry, I'm being goofy. Today. I don't know why. But I will say, I want to say something. Anyone who watches this or listens to this or reads my blog or, ever has been behind me in a supermarket checkout knows I'm just infatuated with the world of stand-up comedy right now and how varied and diverse and vibrant and alive it is. And especially what I love is the off-road comedians, these men and women who have gone away from the gatekeepers and have just made their own worlds, beyond, yes, the Joe Rogans and the Santinos and everybody, that great world of group, but Theo Vaughn. But then you really get into the nooks and the crannies. There's guys like Lee Camp, who has a show on Rumble and YouTube, and he live streams his sets, and he actually for years did a show called Redacted that I believe was on a RT, a Russian channel, which I don't even know what that is, but he's just a really interesting guy. I look at him as like George Carlin, as if someone stranded him out on an island for years, and he just had to figure out a way to communicate his comedy to people. But he's got a lot going on up here, this guy. He's clever and he's funny, and it's funny. I did see someone said that he was just like a right-wing comic, which he's just not. He's a liberal. You can just see, he's feels more like a left-wing guy to me, but there are some things that he's off the plantation on in terms of corporate and the Ukraine war, which anybody with half a brain is not dancing in the parade on that one. But he's just a bright guy, and he's funny, and he's another one of these comedians that just created his own world in the stand-up world. And he's here today. How about that, Pat?
Exciting.
And I also got a feeling a guy like him probably has a good therapist you could talk to, you know? So we'll get to him after the show and we'll ask him. But let's bring him on. He's here today. Lee Camp. Lee Camp, how are you?
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. You're quite the odd stand-up duck, man. It's good to have you on here, man. I really I'm I'm obsessed with stand-up comics and stand-up comedy and I just like them from all different branches of the tree, and you're definitely on a different branch of a lot of everybody else. So I really love that you're here.
Thank you. I'll take it as a compliment.
Yo, take it as a compliment, man. I think you're great. I think you're great and funny and smart as hell. I will say that, man. And I love what you do.
And I spent many years just going the same route as everyone else. So I'm not. I wasn't raised in some sort of a Marxist summer camp or something like that.
No, you remind me of like George Carlin. If somebody, put him on an island and said, "Just listen, man, you're just gonna have to do your own thing and and then just figure it out. God damn it."
Yeah, no, I mean, I spent so many years in the clubs and everything, and now
which was mainly did you play?
Well, I went straight after college. I went up to New York, and the first club that would let me do any time was Ha Comedy Club, which was, kind of a garbage club in Times Square. But then I, worked my way up, and by the time I left New York City, 12 years later, I was playing all of them: Caroline's, Gotham, Comedy Cellar, Comic Strip. I was at a lot, I guess, one of the main ones. But then, of course, you don't make the living there, so I was making a living with college touring.
And did you always have like a political bent to your comedy?
So no, it started as pretty observational. I mean, I looked up to guys like Seinfeld, and it started pretty observational. And then around my early 20s, when I started touring all these colleges, I started becoming a little more political. I think the Iraq invasion definitely changed a lot of things in my mind. It kind of blew me away that the U.S. would invade a country on false reasons and just bomb the ever-living shit out of innocent people. And because I didn't know our history. So
I was going to say, I think that goes back to the pirate era.
Yeah, at that time, I didn't know our history. So
How old a guy are you, Lee? What are you, in your 30s?
43.
43? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You look good for 43.
Oh, thank you. But so when I started becoming more aware, it just felt, I don't know, it started to feel a little fake to me to go on stage and not talk about it. And then off stage, it was a lot of what I cared about. And so I started merging the two kind of slowly at first. And I found it far more interesting to like those jokes that make people think while they're laughing. And it has like the laugh has a different sound, a different timbre when people are kind of, and this probably goes for shocking them as well, but shocked or kind of nervous about the revelations that you're talking about. And so I definitely, kept intertwining them more and more until it became ultimately a 95% political act or cultural commentary, etc.
Well, where does that come from? I mean, you were obviously raised by Marxists. That makes sense. And I mean, but other than that, I mean, growing up, did you have like a strong interest in politics and things like that?
No, I had a strong interest in comedy. That was it. My father was a doctor in the military for 20 years. He was in Vietnam. My mother's a social worker, and but they're kind of your average liberals, I guess. And so yeah, it just I think that comedy opened my mind to kind of investigating everything. Like I wanted to read. I wanted to find out the truth about everything. And at first that started about, I wanted to find out the truth about, McDonald's commercials or something, but
Yeah,
it grew until I was just reading all the books that you should read, Noam Chomsky and Chris Hedges and stuff.
That's funny. It's funny because, like when I got started, there, there was a history of, like, I guess, Mort Saul, and then there were
Yeah.
some really good guys up in San Francisco like Will Durst, and
Yep.
I was really good friends with a guy named Argus Hamilton. Do you know who that is?
I know he is, but I don't think I've ever met him. I did work with Will Durst a couple times.
And Argus wrote a lot of political comedy, and he was just a guy that he still is, actually. He just writes but he was a joke guy. And he would write right jokes, left jokes. He really wanted to be Johnny Carson and write political humor of the day just to make an
Right.
audience laugh. And I could never really even figure out what his point of view was,
Right.
And then, I knew Bill Maher, and Bill Maher was a guy. He was always a bright guy. He was always such a liberal to me, that he, and you knew where he stood. And he had that show, the first show, Politically Incorrect.
Yep.
And I was on that one, and I remember thinking he always liked a good conversation, and he didn't want you to be on the same wavelength as him. It was better if you were,
Right.
But that was it. That was the whole spectrum of political comedy, and even George Carlin, who was a hero of mine growing up, and who I became friendly with, and he produced my first HBO special when I was a kid.
Oh, wow.
And he was all over the map politically. He was just such a big thinker,
Well, he had an interesting trajectory. I mean, you can correct me. You probably know more than I do, but in terms of, at first it's very kind of standard comedy, then it becomes counterculture. He had that big shift. And then through the 80s, it kind of becomes observational. There is a fair mix of kind of cats and dogs and stuff. And then he really digs in like the 90s. It becomes like, oh, this guy's saying some shit, like,
Yep.
like about, bombing brown people, and his bits like that. We're really digging in.
Yes. No. George Carlin, interestingly enough, had 3 or 4 different versions of George Carlin in the course of his life, But my point was, there's the real political comedians were like Richard Pryor and black comics talking about the politics of race. There's never really been any successful, or Americans have really, at least in America, I don't, they haven't really wanted to talk about the politics of politics in stand up. They don't want to hear it.
Well, yeah, there's definitely some of that. I think that it had to do with a shift in the gatekeepers. I definitely benefited from, and people have said, they wonder what it'd be like if, Lenny Bruce had a YouTube show or Bill Hicks had a YouTube show. But
Right.
I definitely benefited from this golden period of, you could gain success without appealing to a corporate suit at CBS.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
they're not having me on. So,
Well, I was going to say, the one thing I forgot was the Smothers Brothers, and
Yep.
they tried it and they got kicked off on
Yep.
CBS. This was years ago. And by the way, am I wrong to say it's not a YouTube show? It's a Rumble show.
So I still have a lot of it on YouTube as well, but
Oh,
so YouTube, I had a for me, large YouTube channel, 250,000 subscribers, and that was banned around the world a year and a half ago. So if you go to that channel now, it still says banned in your country, no matter which country you're in.
yeah.
And
So
when
it's
that
pretty much banned. When you're banned around the world, you're banned.
you're banned. It's
It's
banned.
pretty much you can just say banned. You don't need the around the world.
It's fully banned. And well, yeah, people get confused because they see in your country and they think it's a country thing, but it's around the world.
Yeah.
But so when that happened, I now do rumble.com/Lee Camp, because their platform, the whole idea is we're not going to ban you for things you say. Now, most people are under the misconception that means only right wingers are there or only far right wingers.
No, I don't
But
think that's true.
are they? Yeah, I just know some people think that, and I just want to clarify that no, it's like I'm anti-war and I have a lot of critiques of capitalism, and that's why I'm there. So
Yeah, I was gonna say. I was gonna say. Not only do I don't see you as a right winger.
I'm not at all.
Yeah, I was.
I'm far left of Bill Maher. So
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna say, and you're on there. I didn't know you were on YouTube. Just to be honest, I
yeah,
just thought you were a Rumble guy who likes to say whatever he wants to say. And I personally love your take on the Ukraine,
oh,
but
thank you.
I don't think you're a right winger, and I don't think Russell Brand is a right winger myself,
Yeah,
but he's
his view,
right of you.
yeah, on certain things he's right of me, but his viewpoints have been kind of gone in shifts. But I wouldn't call him like they want to paint him as just a right winger, and I think that's incorrect. Yeah.
No, but I definitely don't see you as that. I just, to me, that's the problem right there in a nutshell. And that's, I do have a problem with YouTube myself, because just Theo Vaughn had Roseanne Barr on, and they made a joke about the Holocaust, and it was so obvious what they were going for is a Trump joke, and they banned the whole episode. And I was
Yeah.
on Jimmy Dore's show not long ago, and I made a joke about vaccines, and he had to go, well, Mike, we did it, as he was obviously teasing me, but he was trying to say, YouTube, don't ban me for this,
Right.
and I just don't think, as a comedian in 2023, on a streaming thing and our own shows, we should be having to deal with that,
Yeah, no, it's very problematic, and a lot of people, like you're saying about people saying I don't want to say this or I can't say this. There's a lot of self censorship. I mean, we can barely talk about the fact that there are Nazis in Ukraine, which even the New York Times has admitted.
No, they're in Canada now.
And yeah, they gave a standing ovation to a Nazi in Parliament the other day in
Yeah,
Canada.
the Nazis have all moved to Canada, and
but the fact that a lot of people are not speaking about these things because they know that YouTube is demonetizing and censoring these type of things. They rarely delete a video because of it, but a lot of people, this is, they don't want to be demonetized, so they avoid these topics. So if you can get to a world where it's full self-censorship, that's perfect for the criminals at the top. They love that stuff.
well, listen, just so you know, I and I don't talk about this a lot yet. I'm coming out. No, no, we are building Stand Up World as a streaming app for comedians, like
Nice.
the Spotify of stand-up comedy, and it's really cool. It's being built, and it's going to be launched soon, but one of the biggest things about it is it's a free speech zone, and I'm going to curate it to the sense that you got to have real comedians on there that really want to be professionals,
Right.
but I'm not going to have anything to do with what someone says,
I love it.
and it's going to be really a cool, it's a subscriber based thing, and it's going to be and we're going to right down the middle split the money with the comedians,
Oh, that's beautiful. That's
Yeah.
beautiful.
And it's
Yeah.
but I just, in general, I just, YouTube is really gives me I'm not even bothering with what I push this on is Substack more than anything,
Mhm.
and but I'm really and I should be on Rumble. I should take Rumble serious.
What do you think of one thing that has annoyed me is some comedians act like they're being canceled because people got offended. And I always think it's people's right to be offended. You can be offended at a joke.
Of course.
Canceled is something else. It's being demonetized or turned off or
Yep. I made this special with this guy Brian Holtzman, who is a really great comedian, just a great comedian, but he doesn't he doesn't pull any punches. You know, he
Mhm.
he did this great joke of, this Louis C.K. This Louis C.K. genius comedian. The only thing he did wrong, he let those two women live. You know,
Jesus
and I
Christ.
mean, he just goes on and on and on. He's just nuts,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I produced, Bill Burr produced it with us in the Comedy Store, and I shot this thing, and no one would buy it. So we put it up
Really?
on. No one would buy it, and he's a genius, and he's a comedian's comedian. Everyone, Rogan, everybody loves him. We put it up on YouTube, and they wouldn't let, demonetized it,
Right. Right.
right away, and I just think that's just so sad, because you could say, let different products not want to say we want to sponsor him, but if if the guy is great, and
Yeah.
people love him, and it just really was kind of like the last straw, kind of, for me. But I wanted to
Yeah,
ask
it is
you about
disheartening.
another question aspect of your work, which I really find interesting, and I'm curious about. You do a lot of concerts where you live stream them, right?
Yeah, I just started it a few months ago, doing live Zoom comedy hours, and it even though I prefer a live audience, I love a live audience, I'm all about it, but even in this quasi post pandemic
I
world,
was gonna say, someone you're like a Japanese soldier that didn't know the war was over.
That's true. That's true. Why am I starting it now? No, but the two things is one, it's still tough, even with somewhat post pandemic, it's still tough to get people to come out. But on top of that, it's that I can sell $5 tickets around the world as opposed to in one city, and so. And I think the other reason a lot of comics wouldn't do this is I'm doing a completely new hour every 6 weeks or so. So I think a lot of comics don't want to burn through that much material, but I was kind of like, fuck it. And so I've been doing these, live Zoom comedy hours for anyone, $5, anyone around the world who wants to attend.
And how often is it? Every 6 weeks?
Well, this is the second one is coming up, and it's these two, and then I did another one as a fundraiser. So it's been about every 6 weeks, but it's not like clockwork, but yeah.
So now, is it like, it's not Zoom? It's just you. It's not a bunch of squares on there, right? Not a bunch of faces.
Yeah, Zoom is the software, but yeah, it's just my face. Yeah.
And you have no audience with you, right?
So with the first one, we tried leaving a few people unmuted, but it turns out the other people found because you can't moderate the volume of the audience, they found it annoying. So now I think we're cutting off the laughter. But this is a new world. Sitcoms don't have laughter anymore, so maybe people are open to this.
And when you're doing it, are you doing it like a monologue, or you're not reading from anything, or?
Yeah, I am. I have my notes in front of me,
I
but they're
see.
right by the camera, so it's not like a eye issue, eye line issue. But uh, and that's the only way I was able to do a new hour so often is to have notes with me.
I see.
Um,
No, that makes sense.
but the other thing with the no laughter, even though I find it frustrating, is I had to do my comedy news TV show Redacted Tonight for 2 years without an audience, without a live audience because of the pandemic. We'd done it for 6 years with a live audience. And so I basically had to get accustomed to doing a comedy show with no live audience. And so it's not actually that weird to me, but
I see. And when you say doing it around the world, so other people are just watching it at wherever part of their time zone that they can get it, right?
yeah, I basically do each one twice, once in a time zone for the US, so 9 p.m. Eastern. But then the second one I do at 1 p.m. on a Wednesday so that it's a better time zone for London and for places in Europe where I know I have some fans.
And that's great. I can see that being something that could really build a good audience, if it just, that's what I've found the most interesting part of and by the way, just so you know, because you probably don't, this whole stand-up world thing
Hmm.
is me kind of, I've just become obsessed with this new stand-up underworld, as you said, when the gatekeepers were gone
Hmm.
and everybody built their own world. I mean, guys like you, I really, they're, it's really interesting to me, to the point where I became one of them. I'm just kind of following you guys. But the
Thank you.
thing that I learned the most is, the only thing that I know for sure works is a discipline,
Yeah.
consistency, and and people like that. People like to see something and just see it again and again, and see. I remember guys like Bill Burr and Rogan, and talking to them when I was doing the Comedy Store documentary, that they'd say at the beginning that they'd played it almost nobody, and
Yeah.
they just slowly built these audiences, and
I I'm it's funny right now in this interview, I'm trying to shift my brain to, oh yeah, you and the people listening actually care about stand-up and comedy as much as I do, because I normally do interviews where no one gives a fuck about my process or
right,
how I do
right.
this stuff. But no, you're totally right. And when I first started, so I basically started a YouTube show called A Moment of Clarity, 2010 maybe. And when I first started, I had to remind accept that, okay, when I start this thing, nobody's gonna be watching. I'm gonna be writing. It started as 5 minutes. I'm gonna be writing a new 5 minute comedy political thing every 2 a week, and nobody's gonna be watching. And I just have to view it as an exercise. I'm going to have this writing exercise twice a week, and that's sure enough what it was. It got 50 views or something. And then it started catching on, and then you have thousands watching. And it also, through the whole time, even when 50 people were watching, it was an exercise of teaching myself to write that frequently and to keep it fresh and to keep changing things and to not get into that rut, which sometimes I definitely got into in New York City, where you're doing 2 shows a night of 10 minutes or 15 minutes each, and you're doing 90% the same material on a lot of the shows, and you're saying the same jokes over and over and over again, and you hardly even feel a need to write because you're going to do the same hour or whatever when you go out to colleges and everything. So it was making me just churn out new stuff. And then when that got big enough, the YouTube show, to get me a TV show, Redacted Tonight, that I co-created, it was a half hour a week, but my segment that I was the main voice of, I wrote entirely myself. It was basically 15 minutes of the show. So 15 minutes of the show, I had to write a new 15 minutes of comedy every week.
And it was
Uh,
all current topics, and
all current topics and everything. And I was in that practice. There was no summer off. I was in that practice for 8 years of
wow.
a new show, and I also edited the other correspondence segments as well. But and so I just was in that writing mode. And all these other comedy news shows, some of them are excellent, but they have teams of writers, and I didn't. So I've just been toiling away, writing my face off for years. But
Yeah, yep. Listen, that's a discipline. That's an incredible discipline, and that's the one thing. I was away from stand up comedy for 28 years.
oh, that long? Huh.
Yeah, no, I did it. Yeah, I was in prison, but I was no, I no, I was I started it and was really into it as a young kid for like 12 years and did a lot of it, and then I was directing and writing and acting and doing stuff, and I but one of the things that I really love being back is writing a lot of stand up,
Mhm.
but the thing about, I do think, I wish I was writing more political stuff and more topical stuff, because that does force you to be constantly refreshing every day,
Yeah. Yeah.
But when you're playing nightclubs, especially comedy clubs like I'm playing, there's you know I put in, a hunk of topical stuff, but the audiences really don't want it. You really just feel that. You just kind of
Yeah.
viscerally feel that we're here to get away from that.
Right. Yeah. No, I when I was playing clubs regularly, I definitely felt that there was some were trying to get away from that, but there was also some of like, okay, well, these people are all over the political spectrum. So how do I, without, without betraying my values, without acting like I don't care about anything, how do I get everybody to laugh at something they might not agree with? And it was definitely a challenge. And I've definitely been kind of lucky in that with Redacted Tonight, it was very much like I don't have to, that portion of the comedy craft I can avoid right now. I don't have to do right now. I don't have to bring along everybody. I
Right.
can bring along 50%, and we're doing fine here. If only 50% agree with me, then fine.
Well,
But
that's a great place to be. Are you getting up on stage in Baltimore a lot?
no, I also have this thing, a new human, so I'm dealing with. So that
I
uh, that
see.
that we've pumped out. So no, I haven't been performing live. I did a few shows in Europe when we fled to Sweden for a few months, and I toured London and Berlin and stuff. But no, very little live stage shows.
Yep. Yeah. I'll tell you. I bet you miss it though, right?
Oh man, there is nothing like a live show. There's nothing like it.
I have to tell you, Lee. I hadn't done it for years, and then I was spent 2.5 years at the Comedy Store doing this documentary film. Everyone was going, "Don't you miss it?" No, no, no. I'm so. I got up one night for this show. I wrote 15 minutes of new stuff for it, and it worked.
Oh yeah.
And it was like I was like a heroin addict. The next day, I was in the alley blowing guys for time spots. It just like it's so addicting.
When you first stopped, was it tough to stop?
No, because when I stopped, I did Vegas, and I did this HBO special, and then I stopped because I had to make a choice. I was doing a movie, so I
Yeah.
was so busy doing the movie,
Right.
and then I had two new humans, raising kids, little babies, and
Yeah.
luckily neither of them survived. So I got a free pass on that.
Good for you.
No,
for you.
yeah, I got really lucky. We left them in another alley. But no, I just that my kids are older now, and and my wife just really likes me gone. So I'm in that place that I am back doing it, and I just happen to be loving it, But I love it, but I love the world of it. I love
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I love seeing new comedians. I love talking to guys like you. I love watching your stuff, and like I said, I only watched John Rumble. Like I didn't watch you on, didn't even know you were on YouTube. But and
So, well, the Rumble Show is very little comedy. It's pretty newsy. But so, have you seen Redacted Tonight or the comedy show or anything?
I just see clips of
Oh,
all of
okay.
it. I've seen
Okay.
clips of your comedy, and I saw some stuff of you at the comic strip, which
Okay.
I
Yeah.
thought was really good, and it wasn't political. You're right. It was just, but I don't know why. You kind of remind me a little of young George Carlin.
No, Kelly. I'm friends with Kelly, and you know her.
Yeah,
Uh,
sure.
yeah. So I got very lucky years ago. She agreed to do an opening for me and say I was one of those keeping Carlin's torch lit, and it definitely helped me at the time when I was a no name. So she's great.
When I was a kid in Detroit, I grew up in Detroit, and I used to I'd go see him at Pine Knob where he'd play, which is a big like 7,000 seat outdoor thing. And one year I went down and I gave him a joint at the stage, and he took it. And he said, "Hey, let me tell you something." No, I'm sorry. he went for it. You know what? I can't take this. He goes, but thank you, man. But I'll tell you, I'm going to give you a little tip. What I do if you ever move to a new town, I take a bag of pot and I keep it in my glove box. And if I get pulled over, I say to the cop, I'm George Carlin. I just moved into town. Look what I got a bag of pot here. I was on my way to the police station to turn this into you. And that way, if I ever get pulled over again or busted, I say, hey, I'm on my way to bring this shit to you. Look in my records. It's right there. You see, it's my MO, you know? So the next time I go back, I do it again. He does the same bit with me.
Oh yeah.
Right. So I keep going back and doing the bit. I set him up for the bit like 3 years in a row.
3 years in a row.
So I dragged my friends down there one year and I'm like, and this is now I'm like 16, 17 years old, you know, and my friends aren't into comedy, but I make them go. I get them the tickets and everything. And I even know that where he's staying because my friend's mom works at the hotel where he's staying. I said, we can meet him, and, you know. And he doesn't do the bit. He just kind of like, thanks, man. Thanks. Appreciate it. And after I go, you guys will go to the hotel. We'll wait for him and meet him. They go, we don't want to meet him. We're going to go to the Wagon Wheel, this bar that we were too young to get in, but we could sneak in. So they go. I wait for him. He never shows up. They all got pictures of him. He went to that bar.
No way.
They all got Polaroids of him hanging with him. And he wrote me a note. He said, hey, Mike, thanks for all the pot you brought me. And then, you know, it's just so funny. Just over the years, I got to meet him and he executive produced my special. But
cool.
he was just a great guy. He was just he was, you know, he really liked comedians, you know, and really liked young comedians. And he's just a really special guy.
Yeah, I never got to meet him. Luckily, I get to know Kelly, and that's really great. But I know that he was really great interpersonally as well. Like I've had multiple people tell me that they were like shocked when he'd meet them 1 second, they're nobody, and then 10 minutes or an hour later, he knows their name still.
Yeah,
and it blew him away.
Yeah. Hey, the thing I was going to ask you. When you said you were doing colleges, that must have been the last time comedians could do colleges, huh?
You mean without offending someone?
Yeah, I mean, because when I was doing colleges, I went on a whole college tour, and we would do colleges were the great gigs when I was doing it.
Yeah,
but I know now nobody can do colleges.
So I started, like I told you, I started out observational, but I was also clean, and so. Joey Edmonds agency, a college agency, they found me. I got early. I got lucky, like found me while I was in college. And so I landed my first NACA. I got really lucky there. And then I performed at a NACA conference. And in my first ever performance at a first ever NACA, I'd get 80 colleges in 1 year, which, they're paying $900, $1,000. It was, I think I'm the only like 22-year-old to be making a living at comedy other than, Dave Chappelle, but he was doing it in a better way. But but
that's amazing.
It was kind of crazy. It was both luck and also, the fact that I was working hard at it, but it definitely was a big luck factor. And at that time I was both young and I was doing a clean act, observational, and it was perfect for me.
No politics, right?
No real politics. There might be a couple of jokes about, why do we have homeless people or something? But no, nothing really. And it was perfect for me. And I made a living doing that for, 6 years while in between colleges, I go back and I do the New York clubs for no money. And then combined with my change on stage was also 2008. I'm invited on Fox News. They know I'm, somewhat liberal or something, but they thought I'd kind of play the game and be nice with them. And instead I go on and I call them a parade of propaganda and a festival of ignorance, Now, of course, nowadays I understand that that's all of our mainstream media, but still, and that clip goes viral, which means that from that point on, when these colleges would Google me, the first thing that would come up is that clip, and it it meant they largely stopped booking me. And it wasn't really because they thought the kids wouldn't enjoy my comedy, the college kids. It was that they're afraid, like you said, of offending someone. And so they don't want a political comic. They don't want someone who might say something risque. And so, my college tours petered out for the next couple of years. And I got kind of lucky that it was at the same time I was becoming more political. So I didn't really fit there like I used to.
I can't imagine anybody with any kind of opinion on anything playing a college right now. Yeah, those seats are a little brightly colored. That's bullshit.
He said colored.
Yeah, it's just like
yeah.
when I was in my early 20s, my roommate was Dave Coulier. Do you know who Dave Coulier is?
Yeah.
He was my roommate, and boy,
Alanis Morissette's boyfriend, right?
Yeah, he was. Actually, we knew Alanis pretty well, and for a long time they were going together. But not that was later. I think that was a little later. But he was my buddy for years, and he still is, But he worked really clean, and he did some of those college shows, and he booked so many shows.
Well, and he had the TV fame too.
Well, this is before that.
Oh, it's before that. Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, this is before that. He went out there and he gave, and college girls loved him,
I bet.
Yeah, but listen, to me right now when I'm on stage, I'm lucky cuz I'm 65 years old and I just get away with a lot. I really do. A lot of it.
You think it's because you're older?
I think it's because I'm older, and I think they realize I don't care,
Right.
But I do a lot. I push a lot of buttons, not so much politics, but I just a lot of social politics, and I like to mess around, and I like to do comedy about the world that we live in,
Yeah.
and I don't know. When I come off stage, the other comics always say, "Man, you're brave. You get away with shit," and I'm like, I don't know if that's brave. I just that's when I started back, my family would say, "You're going to get in a lot of trouble. You got a big mouth," and that's just who I am. But I think that's what you're supposed to do as a comedian. You're supposed to be a troublemaker.
Well, yeah, I think pushing the boundaries is so important with comedy, and some of the people I looked up to the most coming up, Carlin for one, but Paul Krasner and these people that horrified the normals with some of the stuff they were saying. You're definitely supposed to do that, and it's so important. And so to have that aspect of comedy being cut out it's pretty upsetting.
But it's not cut out. That's the thing. What you said.
Or self-censorship, right?
It's self-censorship. I've had to say to so many comedians, I can only think of one comedian who's ever been canceled for something they said on stage. And that's Michael Richards, who that wasn't even part of his act. He just lost his shit, But comedians that have been canceled or the trouble is really offstage antics, You're just
except for me.
Really, for on stuff you said on stage?
Well, yeah, my stuff is banned largely for being anti-war and anti-capitalist. I mean, that's
on YouTube. That's on YouTube. You're saying
it's not just YouTube. So YouTube banned it globally. My Spotify podcast was banned. It's now up under a different name. It's called The Lee Camp Show, but it was banned. My stuff is shadow banned on other platforms, and my TV show was shut down. So it's largely, I mean, yes, there are complicated geopolitical machinations going on, but it's for what I'm saying. I haven't done anything off stage. No one's accused me of anything. So it's
Well,
for
that's
what
why
I'm
we
saying.
got you here today, Lee. I have a woman here who.
This is to catch a predator, right?
No, well, that's too bad, and I believe that. I honestly, I guess you're right. I mean, and that's, I guess, and that's beyond comedy. That's for having opinions, and I
Yeah,
do believe,
yeah.
and you know, I thank God for Rumble, you know, and thank God, it's funny. I saw that this weekend that when Russell Brand said that Rumble was the only free speech or the last thing, and Musk got a little turked off, but you know what? Even with him owning it, Twitter is not a free speech zone at all either.
No, there's tons of censorship on Twitter. And something else that you probably don't know this because it just happened past couple of days, but the UK is putting through a bill that very well may cause Rumble to pull out of the UK, basically making it impossible for a platform to operate unless you go exactly under these government guidelines, which many of them are like impossible to adhere to, like.
That's a shame if they pull out of the UK, but at least they'll come on its back. Oh, sorry. Did I say that?
At least give it a reach around, right?
Yeah, right. Now that's a shame. That's a shame. That really is. And I think that I did hear that, and I think that was actually a tailor-made thing to jump down on Russell Brand right now.
Yeah, I think it's using what's going on with Brand, and I'm taking no stance on whether he's guilty or innocent right now, but I think it's using what's happening with him to do something they wanted to do anyway, which is shut down these platforms that allow speech outside of your mainstream propaganda talking points.
Yeah, and I'm taking a stand that he's innocent until he's proven guilty.
Yeah.
That's my stand on it. I mean, come on. You can't shut a guy's business down because some anonymous people have said things, and 20 years later, give him a trial. Wait until this is all, I just, so I really, that I just I don't like what's happening there. I've seen it happen too many times recently to friends of mine, and, but I don't, I'm talking about just guys on stage telling jokes, I do feel they're self-censoring themselves because the vibe I get in terms of what the audience wants is the audience wants the envelope pushed and all that, that they don't want it comedy being pulled back. Look where the tickets are being sold,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe it'll help people, feel a little more reassured that this is nothing new for the United States of America. Lenny Bruce was basically driven to his death for things he was said on stage. They made it impossible for him to make a living, and
Well, Lenny Bruce was driven to his death from heroin. By heroin.
Yeah, he OD'd, but when someone ODs when they're under that kind of stress, it's kind of it's dual causes in my opinion. So I'm not saying that the drugs didn't kill him. I'm saying that he was being arrested at many performances. They were calling clubs and saying that if he performed, they'd revoke their liquor license. And so he was, you've heard his last performances. They're all about his legal cases. They destroyed his life, and they destroyed it. Even if he had lived, they destroyed his life because he was saying things against basically the church and the government were the two things.
Yep. And now the church is going to end up in a toilet ODing because the church is on the same side as Lenny Bruce.
Yeah, they're going after the church.
Oh man, you don't see that?
Which aspect?
no, and all. God, are you kidding? When in COVID here, and I'm a Jew, so I don't have a dog in the hunt. But
Aren't we all Jews?
yeah, the COVID, during COVID in Canada and here in America, they went after the churches and people that would go to church and
Oh yeah,
and
the
they're
gathering
just
stuff. Yeah.
yeah. Listen, you know what? It's humanity's in a vicious cycle. It just goes and goes forever and ever on a loop. Some of the shit, and thank God people can laugh at it because that's all you can do sometimes.
People need the laughter. Yeah.
Yeah. But listen, man, I really wanted to meet you and talk to you, and I really anybody listening or watching this, we're gonna throw up the link to your live shows and all and your Rumble show and your band all across the world YouTube show, your throttled Twitter brand, everything. Even we're gonna put up all your links and
All my dead links. Yeah.
all your dead link. No, we're gonna definitely your the streaming stuff. So you can keep do what we can even on Stand Up World. I'll put your links up, to get people to see what you're doing because I think it's a great highway you've created for yourself. And
Thanks. I really appreciate that, and I appreciate what you're doing. I hope stand up doesn't become a lost art that we've devoted our lives to.
no, not a chance. It's getting bigger and better ever than it is, and it's up there with the violin, baby.
And yeah, I'm at rumble.com/Lee Camp. People can find me there. Yeah.
Okay, good. Awesome.
Thank you so much, Mike. Really appreciate it.
Good to see you. Okay, that is,
Episode 43.
and wow, he's an interesting guy, isn't he?
Very, very smart.
Yeah. I thought maybe you were not digging him, but because you had a kind of a weird look on your face a couple times, but then I just realized that you just were probably coming down from being with your parents and having some flashbacks and shit.
Of course. I just have to repress.
Yeah. No, he's really interesting, and I do want to get the details on the next live streaming show, and I want to watch it, and we'll put it up and we'll talk about it, as soon as we get it, on even if it's like in the next episode. So anybody that's watching this wants to know when Lee's live streaming is, but he's definitely a guy who's charting an interesting path for himself, which I like. That kid of his has no shot, though. Let's be honest. Let's be honest.
No.
Comedian's kid, Baltimore, Rumble. Hey, there's too many balls juggling in the air.
Right.
That kid's on dope already.
So funny.
All right, that's episode 42. I gotta go. I'm too nutty today, but thank you, lady. Next week, we have also a really special guest that I can't wait for you to see. Join us. Okay, so here's the thing. Apple, Spotify, Substack, StandUpWorld, Substack.com, StandUpWorld.com. Enjoy us there and tell a friend. Have a great day. Thank you.